Okay. I'm Michael Burns, Chair of the Moorhead Economic Development Authority, and I call the meeting of June 7th to order. Amy, would you do the roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Members present today include Abdu Ali, Michael Burns, Laura Caroon, Chad Koda, James Hand, and Deb White. Thank you.
Make a correction.
Thank you.
You may want to make a correction. Alex Cyusa is here.
Oh, Alex. Thank you. Alex Cyusa.
Next item, any agenda amendments?
None at this time.
Thank you. Like a motion to approve the meetings from April 12th, our last meeting.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve. Deb White.
You? Is there a second?
Second, Chad.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Are there any citizens that are addressing the board? You? Commissioners' reports. James, you want to tell us a little bit about MBA, please? All right.
Oh, nope. Unmute yourself there, James. There you go.
How about now? No, that's all right. You want me to keep going or start over? All right, take two. At the MBA, we have a lot going on. Let's Talk business meetings are held every Wednesday at noon at the Moorhead American Legion. This week, Judy Lewis, Executive Director of the Fargo-Moorhead Community Theater, will be discussing their history and about the move to Moorhead. Come early and order lunch and bring your business cards. MBA 560 Connect. Our next MBA 560 Connect is sponsored by Urban Foods Catering. It is on June 14th from 4 to 6 p.m. at Usher's House. To register, go to the MBA website for this excellent networking event. The sold-out MBA annual Party Golf Tournament took place on May 27th. Thanks to Kovash Marine and Vanna Adventure Vans for being this year's hole-in-one sponsors. The Minnesota Legislative Wrap-Up, sponsored by the Chamber and MBA, will be held on June 24th here from 9 to 10 a.m. Go to the MBA website to register online. We'll have an open for business hiring event on June 24th at the Vista parking lot from 1 to 4 p.m. This event is sponsored by MBA, RMCEP, Career Force, and Moorhead Public Schools. If your business is hiring, go to the MBA website and register online to be a part of this event. Moorhead Cruise Night, which we had a great first Moorhead Cruise Night last month, will be held the first Thursday of each month, held on Center Avenue. All are welcome to join us July 1st. Vendor booths and sponsorship opportunities are available. We're very excited for this year's Moorhead Proud 5656 O and Ah 4th of July celebration. Drive up and tune in to Bob 95. The fireworks display can be seen all over Moorhead and surrounding area. A big shout out to our major sponsors, American Crystal Sugar, BNSF, Sanford Health, Kovash Marine, and Altel Alternative Telecom. Please consider chipping in and getting involved in this free event for the community. Bridge Bash 2021, we will welcome back college students on Saturday, September 18th from 1 to 4 p.m. at Viking Ship Park. Stay tuned for more information and sponsorship opportunities. To learn how you can get more involved in the MBA, please reach out to the MBA team, Sherry and Nick, who do a fantastic job. And for those of us in the room, there are some flyers and posters on the back county there that Sherry was holding up. Feel free to grab one or all on your way out. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Any other commissioners' reports? Okay, moving ahead. Next item is City Council Resolution repealing emergency ordinance number 2021-04 relating to open meeting alternatives. Dan, could you address this, please?
I'm happy to, Chair Burns. Thank you. And I just, for starters, just want to thank all of you for your flexibility during the peacetime emergency, the global pandemic. That lasted a long time. And so we're clawing our way out now together. And so on May 24th, the City Council repealed the emergency ordinance related to open meetings and public hearings. So we're getting back to something that we know is normal. It's good that we have a quorum, that people are here. We really appreciate that. And so what this means is that, yeah, we're going to start meeting in person again. We're also exploring options for ensuring that people have access to meetings going forward virtually, whether that be audio or on the phone and some other mechanisms. So taking some of the lessons that we learned and improving access. But for now, the City Council has removed that emergency ordinance, and there isn't an action that's necessary here today. This is just by way of an update.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, great. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Next item is a resolution to approve First Amendment to Master Development Agreement by and between Moorhead EDA and Emery Apartments, LLC. Derek, would you fill us in, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair Burns. And I will point out that Brian Bachman from Enclave is present here today, so I'll maybe give a little bit of a general overview, and Brian, you can fill in the pieces and ask us any questions you may have. Just for a little bit of history context, on October 5th, 2020, the EDA reviewed and approved, as well as the City Council approved, the redevelopment plan for the A Street redevelopment housing project and tax increment financing district. This is as we're all aware of it through the history, a very complex economic development tool. There's a lot of legal and finance components to this. We came to an agreement through a master development agreement that was approved. Ultimately, working with Brian and his team and the extreme inflation that we've had with material prices, they've seen an increase by almost $2 million to just materials alone. So in the compromise that we've continued to work with Enclave and Brian's team, Dan and legal and others, we agreed upon a 2-year extension, looking for a 2-year extension to the overall term, which basically means we're shifting that housing TIF term from 16 years to 18 years, and the term of it, and as well as the payment, basically increases from 2.8 million to 3.3 million. So even though we're adding additional benefit, it still does not make the developer whole for all the charges and the increased costs that they have. But I do want to make that point out there that we are providing some additional assistance in this term extension as well. Worth noting that I think Councilmember White has shared prior to the meeting is this project does have a affordable housing component to it. It is tied to that master development agreement too, so just note that with this additional 2-year extension to 18 years, that does have that affordable housing component to it as well. Before I ask Brian to kind of come to the podium too, we also wanted to share a little bit of a teaser because we have mentioned that there is a commercial component to this project as well. The Enclave team is looking to draft that application and should have that hopefully done by the next deadline, and that goes just to City Council for approval for our commercial industrial property tax exemption. But we thought it'd be good just to kind of show that project is still moving forward, and Brian has shared some renderings that Amy will be able to put on the screen for you to understand the full scope of this project as well. So with that, Brian, if you want to come up to the podium, you can fill in any gaps that I may have missed, and we'll go from there.
Hi. Derek, you did a pretty great job. I don't think I have a whole lot more to add other than the cost of building anything right now is obviously rather crazy. I would tell you that since I shared with Derek that we were over $2 million over, I would guess that we're probably closer to about 2.4 to 2.6 because lumber pricing just keeps going up. But we're trying to find some creative ways to work through that, and we're very thankful that the city's been willing to help us as much as they can. So yeah, we do have some renderings of the exterior of the retail space. The goal is to get started on that one this summer. The quick and easy way to put it is this is the new end of the building. We would take off about 20,000 square feet of the existing empty retail on the south end, put in new storefronts on that end. Everything will be, the entire building will be refaced, putting some new parapets and so on to try to do some better identification of different tenants coming in. But that will get started this summer, and we'll probably finish up repaving the parking lot and so on probably early next spring. So that's an exciting project. We're working with several new potential tenants, getting a really good response to it because everybody really seems to like the overall look. We tried to make the apartment building in the back kind of contrast with it with some of the same colors, but we didn't want it to match it up exactly. So the apartment project will actually be starting this week. That's got a 14 to 16 month construction period on it, and then we will have that one open and ready to go. If you guys have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
And if I can add, just for clarification, what we'd be looking from the EDA today is the approval of the amendment to the housing TIF. So that's the extension of the 2 years. You know, I think Brian sharing us with the commercial side of things, that'll be separate and we'll go to council. So we're just looking at that housing TIF, but again, great to see that full contextual project as it relates to that entire corner down there.
Thank you, Derek, and thank you, Brian. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved. Deb White. Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Yes.
I would just add, from a contractor perspective, the price increase is definitely legit. There's no question there that
It's just depressing.
commodities and everything is at all-time crazy highs, and it's influencing projects across the board. So there's certainly no question of whether or not that's a legit issue. And I think the compromise is, or the, you know, what we're voting on here makes a lot of sense, and it's a nice, you know, way to, like you said, it doesn't get it to bring them whole, but certainly helps, and it's going to be a good amenity for the city. And so definitely in support of this.
Thank you. Any further comment? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item. Would you like to introduce this one as well, Derek?
Yes, I certainly can. For a little bit of context, so obviously our EDA makeup, we do have a couple subset boards that include our Moorhead Loan Fund group as well as the Makara Industrial Review Board. We do have a vacant seat on that board with departure of Pat Kovash, who was there formerly. We decided to reach out to a few members. Thankfully, James Hand has taken the volunteer role of serving on Makara. So if that's acceptable to the board, we would look for a motion to accept James. I will point out Chad was very gracious too this morning. He had reached out as well if we were looking to fill that. So thank you to both of you for being willing to be in that position. it's a transitional board. I'll just say that we have, and this is not going to be news to anybody on this group here, but this review board was made up when the city primarily held all the land in the park. Now, because of some great work by former staff, Amy and others, we've seen a lot of development in that park. Well over the majority of the built park is held privately. And so we would love to see some type of transition that board is either meeting privately through private ownership within that park, or there's some covenants to maybe remove those covenants, or there's an action to remove those covenants. That gets a little bit more complicated when you have legal and other kind of structures in place to kind of form those covenants. But we are looking to see some transition that either removes covenants and becomes a part of zoning, or it becomes privately held. So in the meantime, we are looking for the volunteer, which again, James has graciously done. I will note that we do have a vacancy from the business perspective too, from the ownership of the park. Unfortunately, Steve Connolly with RDO had passed away, almost probably 2 years ago now, which is kind of crazy to think about. But Steve was such a great asset on that board from the private side. And so we will look to try to find a private representative from the park as well. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, or we'd look for a motion to have an EDA member represent us on the Makara Review Board.
Thank you, Derek. Is there a motion to approve James serving in that position?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is the 2021 Enterprise Zone Program. You just want to give us a thumbnail review of that, Amy, please?
Sure. So the Enterprise Zone program has been around for, as you all know, for many, many years, and is part of the legislation that was approved for us to, for border cities. So one of those programs in our Enterprise Zone statutes is the Workers' Compensation Rebate Program. This last year, we had 127 businesses participate in that program, distributing just over $400,000. And we also had 2 housing-related services businesses participate. That's Arbor Park Living Center and Midland Assistant Living Center. So all in all, we distributed just over $460,000 to the businesses in our community. And that is over and above the CARES program that we did this summer, which was 1.8, was it, ish? So that's quite a bit of money that's gone out to our businesses to help during this pandemic and unusual time. On the back side of the report, we just talk about like the current balances of the account and some future needs that we see. The recommendation is just to keep the program flowing at the current credit level of 25%, with a program cap for each business that would qualify for more. They would be capped at $30,000. This is the same level that we used last year, and so we estimate that we'd be using about another $400,000. Derek and Dan and I have talked about basically reviewing some of our incentive programs, and this being one of them. And we actually talked about doing that last year, but with COVID and us being sort of engrossed in all of that, we didn't get around to putting that on our plate to do, but I think we will be doing that very, very shortly. You have anything to add, Derek?
Yeah, I would just add in that, I think, stay tuned. I think the EDA will have a large role in the review of that. I think there's a lot of different aspects we could move to. I think partly we would want to engage the business community, understand their needs, understand the transition, obviously, of what the challenges are here over the next couple of years. But certainly we would be engaging the EDA and the private side of if we were to make any changes, that there would be robust communication and how we get there.
Great, thank you. Dan, do you have anything?
No, other than that, I mean, those are exciting times when you get to take a look at your programs and your resources and figure out how they're going to work well into the community. There's an opportunity here to include this in our comprehensive planning so that it becomes some of our kind of our longer term permanent documents. These comprehensive plans are made to last about 10 to 15 years, but they're kind of expensive. So they usually go about 20. So when we talk about things being consistent with process rather than just getting drawn into different ideas, this is one of those areas where, you know, engagement in that comprehensive planning process is just phenomenally important.
Thank you. All right. I would entertain a motion to recommend to City Council the approval of a 25% credit of the actual workers' comp expense with a $30,000 program cap for the 2021 program year.
So moved, Deb White.
Thank you. Second? You got the second too?
Laura, yep.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do support having this, at least maintaining the 25% credit again this year. And I'm very glad to hear that you're talking about, you know, revisiting what we might do differently in the future, because, you know, as you and I talked about before the meeting, that we have this pool of money and we want to make sure that we're using it in the, you know, the best way possible to build momentum in the community. And the fact that we're spending, you know, even if we spend $400,000 and then we have some that is set aside for the potential high-value projects, we still have some money left over. And so I really look forward to having those discussions about what else we might be doing. But my one question is there anything else in the short term that we might consider doing, and I know, again, from the brief discussion that we had about this, that there's a lot of restrictions on how we use the money, but if there's things that are tied into some of the difficulties that our businesses are still facing as we move out of this pandemic, would there be a way of leveraging this somewhat differently, even if it's just in the short term, so that we could help those businesses out a little bit more? And so I guess I would support what we're doing, but I would also be you know, eager to see us exploring if there are some other things that we might do with some of that money, because we'll still have quite a bit of money left over, even with what we're setting aside and what we'll be spending in this round. And the other thing is, it's nice that we have this at least somewhat degree of permanency now that you know, in our previous legislative session, that we now have this, it no longer sunsets. And so it's nice that we can sort of plan on that. And so maybe this would be a good time to, you know, to take the time to see if we could leverage this in an even better way.
Yes, I would completely agree with a lot of your statements there. One thing I would say that I think it's worth exploring too is, as we're getting more information about the American Rescue Plan dollars that are coming into the community as well, I think we could look at leveraging some of those dollars, as well as potentially some of the stuff we have saved in this account as well. I think that program creation, what does it look like? What are the industries that we're specifically targeting, will be an important conversation. So maybe we need to just have those conversations sooner than later, for sure.
You know, a couple of things that just as you were talking that came to my mind is, you know, I think, you know, there's the old rule is public good for the public resource, and that's what's happening here. So identifying where some of those needs might be and where we could really support some of the businesses that, you know, really truly do have needs that have been identified. Those go from childcare. We've known the stages have had issues, restaurants. I mean, maybe there's some opportunities to get really creative there, whether it be by employee credits or, you know, some of that. And that's where I think the opportunity, when we talk about engagement and hearing what that is and where the values are and where these funds should be directed, because there's also other opportunities, say with West Central, and there's the Moorhead Investment Fund that's over there, and some different mechanisms where we really could be guided by using, right, the public resource for the public good.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Number 10, item Economic Development Report. Eric?
Thank you, Chair Burns. Yeah, a few highlights that I'd probably stress on today, and I think very relevant to the conversation that we just concluded on, is that with a lot of optimism, I think, from businesses as it relates to the mask mandate removal and the ease of restrictions from the state, but workforce is a dominant issue right now and challenge for so many industries. Talking to Sherry with the Moorhead Business Association today, and just even going around town and some of our national chains as it relates to restaurants and local chains as well that are struggling to find workforce. That compounds into a variety of different issues as it relates to how much you can pay someone and what strain that even creates on the business itself. So we are certainly looking at ways we potentially could help in that. I think it'll be very interesting to see how the impacts, how it impacts with the state of North Dakota dropping that additional federal unemployment benefit as well. Certainly that's going to have a regional impact on our workforce too. But as I just recently mentioned with some of the federal funds that are out there, the American Rescue Plan, including the Restaurant Revitalization Fund that I think a lot of businesses took advantage of here locally, as well as the additional local government funding from not only the city's perspective, but where we'd love to have further conversations with the county, because I believe they're going to have a quite substantial fund of about 13 million that we can put those federal dollars to good work, as well as some of our local tools to help people in a very challenging time. So more to come on that, but certainly as you see things, make maybe Amy and I aware of it. If you see a business that you see a sign on the door that they're struggling with workforce, I would say let us know, let Sherry know. We want to be in the know at least, so we can reach out to folks and start understanding their challenges and what they're up against as well. I am also pleased to announce that in addition to MBA and DMI, which we have been partnered with the State of Minnesota Chamber of Commerce on their Grow Minnesota initiative, the Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC, which Ryan is in attendance here today, and our local chamber, the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber, have been willing to join us in that initiative. So there's 4 of us here locally that will be a part of that initiative at the state level. Those are one-on-one conversations that we have with businesses. We also have a survey tool that we'll be able to utilize, and that reporting goes back to the state chamber, and they provide reports to us. They summarize things, but more impactful is they can understand our needs here as well. And when it comes to lobbying for different initiatives and measures at the state legislative session, they will understand our needs much, much better when it comes down to that. I mentioned briefly the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber of Commerce. They've held a couple events here lately. On May 18th, I was able to present at their Public Policy Committee meeting. On May 4th, they held an Eggs and Issues that was supposed to be a kind of a legislative wrap-up. As most of us know, Minnesota wasn't wrapped up by that time yet. But we are looking to see another event. I think it's June 24th. MBA is going to be a co-host of that as well, where we'll have a very specific Minnesota legislative wrap-up. So we hope all of you can attend that and participate, ask questions. I think it's a great opportunity to engage with our local legislators and on impacts that we're seeing here. I should have followed up when I was talking about workforce, but Fueling Our Future initiative, which is a partnership between the Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC and the local chamber here, are coming out with a new initiative called Ignite Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo, and it's a software tool that will help with workforce, or hopefully will help with workforce. It's really connecting students and people that are looking for or seeking employment, connecting them to the businesses and vice versa through a lot of videos and training and data as it relates to salaries within our region. So it's a very robust tool. The Chamber and the Fueling Our Future initiative has been working with local partners, school districts, higher ed, and businesses to roll that out. The last I heard, and Ryan, you may know better than me, but I've heard July is when they're hoping to roll that out. But there'll be many more opportunities to engage in that process and what that looks like as it relates to our initiatives here. And then I'll just end by saying the Greater Fargo-Moorhead EDC brought in one of their consultants, Phil Snyder. He is helping with their Shovel Ready program. And so Amy and Dan and myself went with Ryan and Phil and others to kind of look at our large industrial site, the 197 acres in the Makara Industrial Park, to kind of get that certified within their local and regional program here as well. So working through a lot of details. I will mention on that site as well, we are working with Property Resource Group to potentially lay out the park for future development as well. So we're seeing a lot of demand for the 1 and 2 acre sites right now. So we're looking at some of the existing parcels that we have, as well as maybe future roadways that could maybe happen even as soon as next year. Small extensions to roadways that could add 6 to 8 more lots of 1 to 2 acres in size that become much more desirable for our current demands in the marketplace right now too. So more to come on that. We are working with the state of Minnesota and DEED on some infrastructure grants that can hopefully help pay for that as well. So with that, I'll stop and answer any questions that the group may have. Is it not working over there? Oh, there you go. If it doesn't work, you may just have to maybe pop to the next one over. We'll see if that one works, Alex.
Should work.
Oh, there we go.
It's working. Yeah, thank you very much. I just had a question regarding workforce shortages. Has it been just like heightened suddenly, or is it what we were experiencing already over the last, we've heard this again and again. And with the follow-up with that would be any other rural areas where we can maybe learn from them? I mean, is it something just pertaining to the Red River Valley, or is there other rural areas we can learn from? And I was thinking as well, sorry, pretty loaded, but it goes hand in hand. The follow-up as well is obviously wages are something that's always hard. We've seen nationwide, but are there creative ways of working on that attraction and retention of workforce? Because I was thinking on how with what we're doing here, the amazing work we're doing here on creating maybe a more friendly environment, something that is appealing, because I can think of how now the workforce is essentially made of millennials, and sometimes wages is not necessarily, don't get me wrong, we all want a dignifying wage, but it's not necessarily the one thing that the people are looking at. But what are you think other creative ways we can learn from other rural areas that have some of the same, some of the same realities we have here in the FM area? Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. I'll try to answer everything. If I miss anything, just let me know too. I will say, obviously this is happening across the country, right? The workforce challenges, whether it's big cities or small cities, everybody's facing this right now. I think if I look back, through the pandemic, because of the restrictions that we had, many businesses were prevented to even having a lot of employees just on staff, right? So either people found other hours elsewhere, found other opportunities in different industries, et cetera. So I feel like as restrictions have eased, which is, I think, encouraging for so many, now trying to find that staff that have maybe gone on to other opportunities, or quite frankly have found that industry that they were in to be vulnerable, right? So I think that's the challenge of some of these industry-specific stuff. We're certainly looking elsewhere to try to find best practices, seeing how people can do it. I think it's creating ultra-competitive marketplaces, though. So to your last point of creating amenities, creating a community that people want to be engaged with, want to stay in is vital. I think that's why getting to our youth is so critical as well. So I think the enhancements with Moorhead Public Schools, the new high school, as well as the Career Academy is such a big asset. I wish that could be lifted up more and more, because I feel like that in itself creates a workforce pool with maybe folks that come out of that with an associate's degree. That could be electricians, could be plumbers, could be whatever. I think accessing our higher ed in a more meaningful way with graduating students is important as well. I've shared this story before, but I think it's worth noting that I spoke to Concordia's Student Senate like 2 years ago, and there was a room of 50 students there, all bright, you know, young individuals ready to kind of get after the world. And I asked them how many were planning to stay in this area, and there was 2 hands that were up. So it's, again, what is the draw? And that's not necessarily just Moorhead. You know, that's our entire region and how we work together. So I know that Fueling Our Future initiative and other regional initiatives are helping to kind of make this area more desirable. The hard part, I think, about going back to like the wage aspect of it is, yes, I think that's part of it. I think some people look at the price, it is the amenities of living here too. But now translate that back to how stressful and how impacted those businesses were through the pandemic. Some did very well and have the ability to increase the wages to attract that talent. Others have been hit so hard that they're stuck. They really can't excel much more than where they are right now. So it's a very complex, I don't want to say fragile, but it's a very complex issue that we're trying to kind of work for. That's why I feel like some of these tools are great, like the Ignite Fargo Moorhead West Fargo thing is a great tool that can maybe help in certain aspects, but it's going to take much more community efforts as far as connecting the dots to jobs, to talent, to getting people in the door to be ultimately taking a position that's going to stay in our community too. So yeah, we'll be researching a lot of things. We'll be obviously following as much as we can, try to be a trendsetter if we can, right? But we just hope we can get to a point where we're not seeing businesses closed, right? I mean, that is the hardest part of the whole thing, is when you drive by a place and you see the help wanted sign, or you see a sign that they can't even be open today because of the shortages of workers. So it's a hard thing. We all knew it was coming, but maybe not to the extreme that we're seeing as well in certain industries. So hopefully that answered your questions.
Well, and to the root of your question, Cyusa, is the idea that the future for cities is really great. You know, after the pandemic and things like that, that we are proven now more than ever that people are going to be able to choose where they want to be and where they want to live. And that's why it's so important that we create places that people want to be. And I think that that's probably a larger workforce question than even salary or pay. If we want to be in these places, which is going to happen in cities, that's the challenge that's on us. So it's exciting, no doubt, especially when we talk Moorhead's commercial and industrial landscape. Are these 70s era strip malls? That's the future. I mean, you know, if you were starting a downtown project, we would have done that 25, 30 years ago. The fun is in these big parking lots. So let's go.
I will say too, and just in closing, I think Dan hits it right in the head. I think we'll continue to work with businesses. We want to listen to businesses. So that, going back to that whole thing of just informing Sherry and Ryan and Dan and Amy and myself, like, we need to be in the know of what the challenges are. Certainly we'll try to do as much outreach as we can. The other thing that I think is impactful for how a growing community looks and how we get through this is childcare, making sure that we have adequate childcare for a lot of folks that are trying to get back in the workforce. Look of how many situations where folks maybe had to have a parent leave their job to take care of their kids or get them through school. So that is such a meaningful process in itself of just what that looks like for next year or the summer. So there's a lot of factors that are coming into play on this one. But to Dan's point, it's encouraging. I think there's opportunities out there. It's just connecting the right dots and making sure people know of the opportunities that are out there as well.
Yes.
To add on to that, I think I think it's too early to see how many of the things that sort of developed during the pandemic will stick. But I think what I find most intriguing about this, and Cyusa, to your point of looking at, millennials in particular, we always tend to equate where you live and, living and working in the same location, and we can't do that anymore. And so we may be attracting people to live here who end up having no intention or really end up not working here at all. And it could, I think about my son who's in that age range and who's worked from home since he finished college, more than a year ago, and has friends who are working and are, working several states away from where their employer is, and that's becoming more the norm. And so it's a very different conversation that we have to have, is that we may be doing two different things, attracting people to come and live here, but those people may end up not being part of our workforce. They may be contributing in other ways to our economy and our community, but they're actually not necessarily helping with some of the workforce shortage. So it's really two different things now, and it's a unique situation to be in.
Yeah, it very much is. I think that's a really good point. And again, if you have options to live anywhere, and even I'll even mention this, we were just talking to Property Resource Group a couple weeks ago. You can barely find an office for rent in Moorhead right now. So for the first time in probably 20, 30 years, there's potentially a need for speculative office space in Moorhead, which in a time where you wouldn't know that would even be an option, right? I mean, most communities are looking for people to take so much of the vacant space that we have. So again, every community has different struggles, I think, through this and what that true impact is. But I think for us, and I think Dan hit it on the head, for us to be a forward-thinking community and not just thinking in the old ways of, okay, we've done it this way, this is what's going to attract people. It's a totally different mindset of what post-COVID looks like.
Thank you, everyone. That was informative. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, information update. It looks like it's a continuation of your report, Derek.
Yeah, nothing really more to there. I mean, stay engaged, like I've said before, on the other stuff, the city comprehensive plan, the Clay County transportation comprehensive plan too. I mean, there's lots of opportunities to get engaged. We're going to actually have a conversation with Dan afterwards, because I would love to start seeing all of our EDA members as well as all of our council members get the invites to ribbon cuttings that we have in our area. Moorhead Public Schools just did one for their groundbreaking of the school last week. There's many others that Sherry does a good job of tracking, but it would be great to see people show up and support folks. I think that's so meaningful and impactful for our business growth here in our community. So stay engaged as much as you can, and we'll try to provide those opportunities and share those maybe calendar invites with folks so they can have them on there as well.
Any questions, comments about that? Okay, let's move along here. Please remember that if you're interested in tracking the building permits, you can do so on the city's website. The link is provided on the agenda. Any other items? Hearing none, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.